Profit, absolutely living up to his name, submitted this replay yesterday. Somehow he must have known that we were going to get an announcement that Khorne is next on the DLC list. Yes, that's right, folks. Creative Assembly officially confirmed that the next DLC is going to be Khorne, Greenskins, and Ogre Kingdoms. Khorne and Ogre Kingdoms, definitely two factions that could use DLC. Greenskins is an interesting one. Even as a Greenskins enjoyer, I definitely wouldn't say they're in need of a faction rework, although maybe that's why they're coming alongside the other two, because they don't need a faction rework, which would mean they just are probably going to get some new units and some fun stuff to play with, which would be great. But yeah, no Norska, no Slanesh, two other factions that need significant updates, but Khorne and Ogres, at least. Ogres are probably the worst, honestly, of the new Game 3 factions, in terms of their campaign mechanics especially, so let's look for a great rework there. Yeah, I also just wanted to say a quick thanks for everyone who sent in kind words and messages. Had a pet pass away unexpectedly this week, which has definitely hit me hard, so I appreciate all of your kind words, everyone who messaged me, and yeah, let's get to this replay for today. I'm going to be talking a little bit about what I want from Khorne in a DLC. As we see a nice spear slop near from Valkia in the front line. Let's talk about the builds, though. First, we've got a Soul Grinder on each flank here for Khorne. Nice line of Bloodletters, including the Exalted Hellforged Host out on the flank there. Yeah, so Valkia up in the sky, as you saw, and then Furies abounding on each flank. Two. For the Tomb Kings, we've got Cetra, actually. Wow, in the center here, looking for some anti-large AP to fight some larger Khorne stuff. Looks like we shopped Great Bows as well. Tomb Guard Halberds, Nikesh's Scorpion Legion, some more spears. We've got the Eyes of the Desert, front line of Nehekar Warriors that just got hit by that spear. Also includes the Kepler Guard, which got a lot of HP damage from that, but didn't lose any unit models, so they should be able to regenerate quite a bit of that HP. Valkia diving in and then noping back out as she runs from those Shopti Great Bows. So what do I want to see from Khorne? Well, a couple of things. Since we're not getting a Norska update, it would be cool to see some Khorne units that would be usable by Norska. Beastmen have gotten a lot of love recently. I say a lot of love. They got a few new units with Shadows of Change and then Thrones of Decay. It'd be nice for Norska to get something similar, since they're likely not to get a DLC. Well, they're pretty much confirmed not to get a DLC until next year, as we see these Furies rushing in. Interrupts missile units as the Bloodletters advance. Gonna see some precursor cannon shots from the Soul Grinders there. Doesn't do that much damage. This ranged attack's a little bit awkward to use in practice for the Soul Grinders, but yeah, they are moving in now. Reworks to Khorne single entities, speaking of Soul Grinders, would be nice. Soul Grinders themselves are alright. Could maybe do with fine-tuning their shooting attack a little bit. Bloodthirsters, the base unit, also could do with a buff, and Exalted Bloodthirster Lord as well is pretty good, honestly. You do see them in some matchups, but just more variety in terms of Lord and hero abilities. Even like reworks to generic Lords and heroes to give them like Portoglyph, for example, that can summon Furies, or maybe Tormentor Swords. They get a hard snare, right? Because right now they have like a couple of AoE damage options, but for the most part, outside of Valkia and Skarbrand, you really, all your Lords and heroes have basically interchangeable ability sets. It's like a melee attack buff and a stealth buff. So would be nice for Khorne to get some more variety on that front. We see here this Khorne player using his Soul Grinders pretty aggressively to move in here in melee and help mop up just as much as he can. The Bloodletters, of course, going to trade very well in the front line, although they are taking significant losses from any ranged attacks. The Eyes of the Desert managed to disengage there, pull back, get a bead on that Soul Grinder. Cetra is also putting a pounding on Valkia. He is definitely a good enough combatant that he's not just going to fold and fall over. They're pretty comparable, honestly. He's maybe slightly worse, but of course has magic on his side, which will be able to not only heal him slightly, but also give him some nice buffs. Even additional anti-large if he has Overcast Incantation of Cursed Blades. But anyway, another big thing I'd like to see for Khorne, like I said, units usable for Norska, like maybe like a new Khorne Berserker infantry unit, right? That's maybe lighter armor, faster, kind of mid-tier. It's fulfilling maybe a similar role to something like, I don't know, they have a lot of fast DPS infantry in the mid-tier. Between Bloodletters and Forsaken. I don't know, it'd be awkward to maybe fit another unit in there, but just to give something, again, that would be perhaps usable by Norska, or I don't know, maybe some like elite Marauder Horsemen or something else. Maybe some champs, like Berserkers could basically be on the tier of champs, right? Like a more 1100 cost infantry, but with dual hand weapons, so they get that sweet anti-infantry and like massive melee attack and weapon strength. That would probably actually be, now that I'm thinking about it, kind of out loud thinking through this, much better than having them be a mid-tier DPS. Like I said, Khorne's got plenty of mid-tier DPS infantry. And, well, I guess they could kind of compete for Bloodletters, or, sorry, Exalted Bloodletters for that niche. You could make them more just non-AP high weapon strength, so they're better against unarmored factions. I guess you still do have, like, the Chosen, right? Which would, again, be like a slower, heavier variant of a similar type of unit. So there's still some competition for that same niche space. But I don't know, I'm just kind of spitballing here. And I'm probably the wrong person to ask about, like, actual missing units from the lore. I'm sure some people will be leaving that down in the comments below. And just in general, leave your wishes for Khorne or any of the DLC factions in the comments down below. Ogre Kingdoms I'll probably make a separate video about, and Greenskins, to be honest. But today I wanted to talk about Khorne. Also, for those of you still watching this late into the video, my tournament qualifier number 3 is going to be tomorrow, so be sure to check that out. We see here Cetra pops his blades. That's going to give that sweet blinded debuff to a bunch of stuff here. Also gets hit for a bunch of damage, which means the curse is going to pop. That will do a bunch of AoE single target direct damage here. That curse is pretty potent, so with that, that's going to kind of equalize things here, set things somewhat in Cetra's favor as he kind of defends with all of his infantry. I mean, that said, the Hellforge host still alive here as this bloody, brutal brawl has ensued. Valkia getting a nice rear charge in there as they clean up some of this Tomb Guard, and there's not really anything that can directly oppose these guys, especially with their high DPS flaming damage. It's not like Cetra can even come fight them, right? He is weak to fire damage, which is, you know, I mean, all Tomb King's characters are outside of Kotep, so definitely a situation to be in. But, yes, incantation of Cursed Blades there, trying to buff up the weapon strength of the Tomb Guard as they charge in, but they are just kind of mid-tier defensive halberd infantry. Not really up to the task of cleaning out an elite, especially not when they're getting side-charged by multiple single entities there, as the Soul Grinders come barreling on through to mess everything up. Soul Grinders themselves are getting pretty low, and Cetra, of course, incantation of protection. He's got his anti-large AP. As long as he doesn't have to fight them 3v1, which is some nice positioning here to kind of zone the one it's forced to pull up and around before it can do any more attacks. He gets a couple of hits in on this Soul Grinder, try and finish it off. Looks like the leadership will fall through there. He gets pretty lucky, honestly, with a few of these melee attacks whipping. They're up to 80 melee attack against his, 55 weapons, melee defense, rather. And whiff on a few successive attacks, which, especially, you know, flaming damage, again, going to do a little bit extra. But because of that, Cetra does get kind of an advantageous situation against these single entities and ends up actually somehow carrying through against at least the two of them for the time being. Valkia is also here. Then you've got the Hellforged host. Yes. Honestly, again, going back to wishes for Khorne, like Marauder Horsemasters of Khorne would actually be interesting, even if they were like a non-ranged melee-only kind of medium cavalry, right? It'd be an interesting niche to see like an elite medium cavalry that maybe has like super high DPS, but is certainly not as tanky as something like Chaos Knights. Could maybe fill a little bit of a different role. Again, something more akin to like Centigores, perhaps. I don't know. I'm kind of just spitballing here, guys, but let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I know some people have talked about gunpowder for Khorne, which I'm not super into. I think that kind of, although, yes, they do technically use the infernal machines of Chaos Dwarfs, I don't know that it necessarily makes a ton of sense for the faction kind of playstyle identity, but I don't know. If it happened, I also probably wouldn't be that mad. Cetra, though, dies to demonic instability, or rather its counterpart, Crumbling, of course, as he runs out of leadership, and Valkia routes to him. Basically, that leaves the Scorpion Legion to fight the Hellforge host, and of course, the Hellforge host being one of the best elite infantry in the game, their demonic leadership is good enough that they will not suffer instability, unlike Nikesh's Scorpion Legion, who are going to start crumbling soon. Obviously, crumbling does way less damage than demonic instability, but Scorpion Legion are also basically doing no damage in melee. Yeah, you can see the Hellforge host. They're at 610 HP. I'll just kind of highlight them so you can see, oh, there's a little 5 damage there. And there's another like 15 damage there. Oop, yep, taking little tiny little chunks here and there, but not much at all. Even with that, I mean, 43 is pretty good, but for a high DPS unit, actually have close to the same melee defense, but then 81 melee attack plus anti-infantry. Valkia comes back from route, and a super close game, honestly, there at the finish. Despite Cetra's great RNG in that single entity fight, Hellforge host, again, just literally unopposed. It's another reason why you bring Arcan, right? Even like a little bit of extra magic damage from a Fate of Yuna or Spirit Leech just to help speed these guys passing. They're 400 HP left, but they're still going to carry this game. Fun stuff. Very fun stuff. Big thanks to Profit for sending this one in, and again, having the foresight to send it in right before Khorne DLC was announced, essentially. There will be more info. It's pretty sparse on info right now. There will be more info. I think Creative Assembly is going to have a E3-style demo press conference dealio next week. I'm not really sure exactly, or maybe in a couple weeks. I have to look at the date again. Anyway, I'll leave a link down in the description below to the announcement page so y'all can go take a look for yourself. But yeah, fun stuff. Profit here doing mad value on Valkia. And then, of course, the late game carry by the Hellforge host. One, Soul Grinder also pretty much pays for itself. The other one, not quite so much, but definitely help break up this defensive position rather, and also do quite a bit of damage. Then allow the blood letters to get in there and do some damage as well. Fury's nice interruption. Also, they don't necessarily pay for themselves here, but on the Tomb King side, Cetra almost able to carry as well, but not quite there at the end. Shabti Greatbow surprisingly did get some pretty good value despite being interrupted pretty heavily. Same thing for the Eyes of the Desert, but the infantry here for Tomb King's a little bit of a mixed bag. Some of them pay for themselves, a lot of them don't. But it's definitely an interesting matchup. I feel like Khorne has an advantage in this matchup just because they have so much DPS and fire damage. It's tough for Tomb Kings to stand against them, but I feel like the right Tomb King's defensive builds can also be tough for Khorne to potentially crack. You can amass enough like firepower, or single entity wise, I wouldn't really take many of the Tomb King single entities here. It's a little bit odd in that way, but you guys let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.